Welcome back to Canon Chaos, the only show that asks, what if the galaxy's saddest droid became its most effective thief? Today's deeply confused tale, life is like a blaster pack, or as it's known in New Republic legal records, Incident Report 442C, Unauthorized Acquisition of Imperial Property, parentheses, highly emotional. Because once upon a time, on a small moon with a very big rebellion, one grieving, glitchy, googly-eyed droid stole a TIE fighter with nothing but a slideshow and the power of sadness. And he did it for love, for loss, and for a woman named Marva, who once said, "If I had wings, I'd fly away from all this Imperial voodoo." Well, he gave her wings, and a war crime. It started with a chocolate. Not an attack, not a plan, just grief and a vending machine. The Gorman base was a forgotten Imperial outpost on a moon nobody liked. Cold corridors, lonely stormtroopers, the kind of place where hope went to suffocate under fluorescent lighting and petty bureaucracy. And into this walked B. No disguise, no blaster, no authorization. Just a grieving droid rolling through the front gate like he belonged there. Because technically, he did. The Imperials had used his model before. Glorified storage units with a bad attitude and decent traction. Security barely glanced at him. Inside, B found his mark. A vending unit. Glowing. Flickering. One last chocolate spinning in its chamber like a beacon of processed comfort. He beeped at it. Nothing. He beeped again, this time with purpose. Still nothing. So he headbutted the glass. Clunk. It jammed. Not just the chocolate, the whole machine. And from somewhere down the hallway, a voice called out, "Hey, who broke the snacks?" That's how it started. B turned slowly, apologetically. But he didn't run. He didn't panic. He did something much worse. He played a slideshow. The projector popped out of his chest cavity like a war crime in slow motion. And there she was, Marva, in glorious, glitchy resolution, giving a speech about standing up, about fighting back, about love and rebellion and thermal detonators. And the troopers? They stopped. Watched. One took off his helmet. Another wiped something from his cheek. And B? He just kept on rolling. Room to room. Hall to hall. Showing them Marva. Showing them hope. Showing them what they'd lost and what they might never get back. He reached the hangar by accident, but the slideshow kept going. One mechanic whispered, "Who was she?" B whispered back, "She was everything." Then came the moment. A lieutenant, young, bored, over it, walked in mid-speech. "What the hell is this?" He pointed at B. "Shut it off." B didn't. So the trooper tried to grab the projector. And B, gentle, grieving, possibly corrupted, tased him in his nipples. That's when the alarm started, and that's when B rolled towards the nearest TIE fighter. That's when someone shouted, "Wait! Don't stop him!" Because they didn't want to. Because grief, like gravity, pulls you in. Because Marva's voice echoed in the hangar like gospel over static. If I had wings, I'd fly away from all this Imperial voodoo. So B gave her wings. He powered the fighter with stolen codes and raw nerve. A trooper handed him a flight helmet. Another helped boost him up into the cockpit. And when B took off, backwards at first, then sideways, then violently upward, it wasn't treason, it was therapy. They watched him go, fists clenched, eyes wide, and no one stopped him. Because in that moment, the Empire didn't need another TIE fighter. It needed to feel something. The launch was not smooth. The controls were not made for droids, especially not one with wheels. Especially not one shaking from grief and vengeance from that one chocolate you never got. But B didn't care. He launched anyway. The TIE fighter jerked, dipped, then rocketed into the sky like a drunk bird discovering velocity for the first time. Inside, B screamed internally. He wasn't built for flight. He wasn't built for war. He wasn't even built for stairs. The Corman moon shrank behind him. The stars ahead flickered like judgmental eyes. And in the cockpit, a miracle. The slideshow was still playing. Marva's face, her words, her fury. Fight the Empire. B didn't have weapons. He didn't need them. He had loss. He veered towards an orbital checkpoint by accident. 3 TIEs were docked there. A Star Destroyer hung in the background like a smug continent. And they saw him. Unregistered TIE, identify, came the radio tone. B didn't respond. He couldn't. He was too busy sobbing and drifting into oncoming traffic. One officer blinked at the display. Who the hell is piloting that thing? Someone enhanced the feed. They saw the rust, the missing panel, the googly eyes. Oh, stars! It's a droid that needs therapy. The senior officer paused. Do we shoot it? No one answered. Instead, B turned on the external speakers. He blasted Marva's speech across the comms. Across the void. The words echoed between ships. Tell me this is where it ends. Tell me you're brave enough to stand. One TIE pilot lowered his weapons. Another pulled up the slideshow on his datapad. On the Star Destroyer, a mechanic called her mother for the first time in 10 years. And B, he barrel rolled directly into hyperspace. No destination, no coordinates. Just grief, encoded as coordinates. And somehow, it worked. The trial was never supposed to happen. Not because B wasn't guilty. He was. He stole a TIE fighter. He breached orbit. He caused a diplomatic incident involving 3 defectors, 2 desertions, and 1 extremely awkward apology from a mid-level Moff. But no one wanted to prosecute him. Because, as it turns out, prosecuting grief is just bad PR. The official name was Incident Report 442-C. Unauthorized acquisition of Imperial property, highly emotional. Unofficially, it was called the Slideshow Defense. The court record begins with a whisper. State your name for the record. B beeped softly. No words, just sorrowful droid noises. The protocol interpreter droid cleared its throat. He says, it doesn't matter, she's gone. The prosecutor just sighed. The defense counsel, Bothan with anxiety wrinkles and 5 open resignation letters, stood up with a datapad. I'd like to play Exhibit A. They played it again. The slideshow. Marva. Over and over. Her speeches. Her smile. That one time she told a death trooper to eat boot leather and choke. Everyone watched in silence. The judge, a former admiral turned restorative justice advocate, removed her glasses halfway through and started tearing up. One juror openly sobbed into his robe. Another whispered, I miss my mom. By the time the slideshow looped back around to the beginning again, 3 members of the prosecution had defected to the Rebuilding Alderaan Fund, and 1 joined a poetry collective. The prosecutor tried to salvage it. He broke a tie hanger, the judge muttered, with feelings. He used an unauthorized launch sequence to escape his own sadness. He committed a Class A war maneuver while grieving. The protocol droid chimed in helpfully. Translated intent. He did it for love. The judge slammed her gavel once. Case dismissed. And just like that, B was free. Not exonerated. Not celebrated. Just released, with a warning, and some chocolate. Someone finally gave him some. They called him a war criminal, then a freedom fighter, then a mechanical mood disorder in search of a cause. But mostly, they just called him B. B2 Emo disappeared after the trial, just rolled off into the stars. No forwarding frequency, no system ping. One day he was sipping oil outside the courtroom, and the next, gone. But the legend didn't go with him. First came the graffiti. Murals in the underlevels of Coruscant. A rusted red droid with sad eyes and a projected beam coming from his chest. Sometimes Marva's face hovered above him. Sometimes it was just the words, "Grieve loudly." Then came the followers. Not a cult, not really. Just people who'd lost someone, who'd seen the slideshow, who felt something shift in their circuits or their souls. They gathered. They watched the footage. They left chocolates at astromech charging stations. Some built altars from scrap parts and grief. In one Outer Rim market, a vendor sold knockoff B units that played random sad quotes like, "I miss her," even in standby mode. If you can't cry, overheat instead. Love is a firmware malfunction we celebrate anyway. One malfunctioned and won a poetry contest. In a refugee settlement, someone named their child Marva B. In a New Republic school, an ethics professor taught an entire course titled Intent, Emotion, and Droid Agency, the Case of the Flying Slideshow. The official curriculum included a chapter called Sadness as Sabotage. And somewhere, between the myths, the memes, and the moral panic, someone found the transmission. A shaky, low-res clip. A droid in the distance, rolling across a salt flat, covered in sand, dragging a fuel cell, still projecting, still mourning, still moving. They called it the last slide. It ends with a voice, low, static-filled, unmistakably B. She said if she had wings, she'd fly. A pause. So I fly until I forget why. And then I remember. And that's where we'll leave it. A rusted red droid flying through the stars on grief, oil, and unlicensed flight patterns. No weapons, no crew, just heartbreak on repeat and a slideshow that started a small emotional revolution. They tried to call him a criminal. He responded with feelings. They tried to contain him. He rolled through the gaps. Because sometimes the galaxy's most powerful rebel isn't a Jedi, or a soldier, or a politician. It's a droid with a broken heart and a working projector. So the next time somebody says, droids don't feel, just show them the footage, the slideshow, the chocolate, and then whisper, he did it for Marva. Coming soon, probably, B2, Electric Griefaloo, or maybe Rogue 1.5, the sad slide continues. Until then, grieve boldly, steal responsibly, and may the Force be emotionally available.